their capital, their enterprise, their land, their labour. You rejoin us, ladies and gentlemen. We're now looking at specialisation in trade. And we've just established that countries, once they specialise, they will need to trade because they do not have the factor endowments, the land, the labour, the capital, the enterprise that they need to make everything, as no nation does. Therefore, all nations will specialise to a certain degree and then trade. Now, Nathan, what will countries specialise in? The things that they are... Okay, well, let's not use that term just yet. But the things that they are best at producing, yes. The things that they produce most proficiently, most efficiently, countries will specialise in. Other countries will specialise in other things, and then hopefully there's a trade takes place, and all countries should be better off as a consequence of this specialisation and then trading. Okay, now you've mentioned something very important there, Nathan, which was? Correct. Okay, now before we look at comparative advantage, I want to look at something else which is known as absolute advantage. So two very important terms when we're looking at specialisation in trade are absolute advantage on the one hand and comparative advantage on the other. So let's take the UK and France as an example. Now, what's the UK? What's one of the UK's things that we're most proficient at doing? What do we make really well?
It's like financial, like IT services.
Okay, financial services, yeah, absolutely. It's a bit of an intangible, that though, isn't it, Manisha? What do I mean by that?
It's like a service
You can't touch it. Okay, so can you think of something that we can touch? Robert Forrester, one of our business engagement partners. Hi Robert, if you're watching. He produces, well, he doesn't produce them, but he sells them. They made it the most efficient plant in the whole of Europe on our doorstep. Nissan, okay, cars, right. So you could have car, and what about in France? What might they be well known for making? Oh, bonjour, je voudrais du pain. What's that, Dylan? Anyone do A-level French here? Sean?
No.
Not that you need to have done A-level to know that phrase. Je voudrais du pain. Bread, okay. Or what do you call the long? Oui, monsieur. Baguette. Okay. So let's say cars and bread, right? Those are our two goods. $100, $50, $50, $100. So these are units of output, okay? So units of cars and units of du pain. I knew my A-level French would come in handy sometime. Blimey, I think I'll have to start wearing my coat in here. Okay, now, Beza, from that table, which country, UK or France, is best at making cars?
UK.
Why?
Because they produce more cars.
Correct. So they produce more cars, 100. And bread?
The France is better on bread.
Okay, I mean, obviously I've set this up this way, so they're the best at bread. Now, they are, and why? Because they are producing in terms of quantity, they're producing,
The raw materials?
no, just in terms of the numbers, the UK is producing
The most cars?
more relative to France, and France is producing more bread. Which means, yeah, France is producing more bread relative to, right, okay. So that is an example, a very simple, straightforward example of absolute advantage. I.e., you are producing the most in absolute numbers. So produce the most in absolute terms. Now what if I changed it a bit, but not much, as you'll see. Well, I changed it and we had cars and bread still, and we still had 150, 50 and 100. But this time I'm going to say this is cost per unit. Now who's got the absolute advantage, Nathan? Well, you both.
Is it France for cars and UK for bread?
Right. So this time France would have the absolute advantage because it's costing 50 euro or pounds relative to 100, and the UK would have the absolute advantage because it's costing 50 relative to 100. So you just need to be careful whether you're being shown some data, a multiple choice question. Is it output or is it cost, right? Because the answer is the opposite. So you could very easily get this wrong if you didn't take account of output or cost. And so your absolute advantage here is not because you're producing the most, but because you're producing at the lowest cost per unit. And I think, Sean, we will leave it there for today.
Right, okay.